repeat that. You will make $1 million within 3 years of your first day of employment at JT Marlowe. There is no question as to whether or not you'll become a millionaire working here. The only question is how many times over.
There are few things more abhorred in our world than the good old-fashioned 9-to-5 job. Everywhere you look on the internet, you will be met with advertisers and influencers telling you how you can quit the rat race by starting a business, retire early by saving and investing prodigiously, or telling your boss to shove it after your meme coins have mooned. It's a nice dream that sells well, because honestly, sometimes jobs can really suck.
I hate my job.
Commuting an hour a day to spend 8 hours in an office for 5 days a week, all with little to no flexibility, is not most people's idea of a life well spent. Especially since the dream of retirement is going the same ways as the dream of home ownership for young workers. So when an alternative is presented, it's easy to see why these ideas sell so well. But that's exactly the point. Disliking your job is just part of the sales pitch. If someone enjoys or at least appreciates their job, it's much harder to sell them an escape from it, in whatever form that may take. A get-rich-quick course, a vacation, or an overpriced piece of consumer junk that they work hard for and totally deserve. There is little to no money involved in convincing people to enjoy their jobs, so the overwhelming message they hear is that they shouldn't be enjoying this. But what if I told you your job was actually pretty great? Yep. It's time to learn how money works to discover why you should stop worrying and learn to love your 9-to-5. I myself on this channel have been critical of modern working practices. The glamorization of overworking and hustle culture, the total loss of care around staff loyalty, and the jobs themselves being complete bullshit are some of my most popular videos. It's all still true. The standard 40-hour week is an outdated relic of a bygone era, but that's also what makes it so great. The 9-to-5 is something our ancestors fought very hard for. In 1926, the Ford Motor Company introduced a 5-day 40-hour work week for its factory and office workers. This was done to appease labor unions that were protesting poor working conditions while simultaneously making Ford the most attractive employer in the highly lucrative new industry of motor vehicle manufacturing. As an added bonus, besides halting riots and attracting top talent, the 40-hour work week meant that Ford employees had the same time for recreational activities, which necessitated the use of a brand new motor car. You have probably heard this story before, but it's worth reminding yourself that a 9-to-5 schedule is something that was highly desirable and only came about because a move that most considered borderline reckless at the time. Okay, look. This is the part of the video where I say, just because something was a big step forward 100 years ago, doesn't mean that we should stop pushing for improvement entirely. We may have already peaked and are now starting to go backwards. In a lot of professional full-time jobs, starting early and finishing late has become the norm. So too has taking work home with you, and prestigious careers universally involve pulling long hours. Working 8-hour days, 5 days a week, as an analyst at a consulting firm, a junior at an investment bank, resident at a hospital, associate at a big law firm, or even a developer at a tech company would be a dream. These industries can get away with exploiting their highly talented young workers because they are a reliable way to make enough money to live an upper middle class or an upper class lifestyle. First-year graduates in these fields can expect to make 6 figures, and compensation escalates rapidly, with 7-figure packages being achievable within 10 years. People are willing to sacrifice their free time, their relationships, and even their health to stay on that track for as long as possible, because if they do put in the hours and work diligently, it's a sure thing.
Sweetie, maybe you need to go home.
I'm not going home. I cannot get sick right now. I have way too much to do.
But then again, there is also the darker side to this career path. To get into any of these roles, you need to go to good schools. To go to these good schools, you need to be A, decently intelligent, and B, spend a lot of money. It's a little bit different for software developers, but the way the industry is going these days, it's hard to get an entry-level 6-figure job without a college degree at minimum. For investment bankers, lawyers, and especially doctors, it's 6 figures minimum to get the schooling you need to get in on the ground floor. This feeds the vicious cycle of exploitation, because most employers know that quitting is not an option for employees that would be crushed by student debt without the 6-figure income they took the debt on to get in the first place. Mental health amongst workers in these fields is something that is really not talked about enough, especially amongst doctors who are forced to hide their mental health problems because any diagnosis could result in their board certification being revoked, causing them to lose their job that they are dependent on to meet the repayment of their student loans. Even still, for a lot of people, including myself personally, these careers are worthwhile because of how much of a sure thing they are. If you put in the hours and avoid being fired in any of these career paths, you will be rich, like top 1% rich. So why aren't you doing it? These jobs are there, and they have a very clear path of entry and progression. So why are you working the job that you currently do instead of one of these jobs? There has arguably never been a better time to go into these fields, as companies are struggling to attract talent. So why not make the switch? If it's because you enjoy your job that you work, then congratulations. I don't need to prove to you that your 9 to 5 is great. Maybe you think that it's too risky, but really, risk isn't part of it. You will have to take on a lot of debt, and maybe you won't get into the most prestigious institutions in these fields. But you are always going to make a lot of money if you dedicate your career to doing any of these things. Perhaps you are being really honest with yourself, and you think that you aren't smart enough, dedicated enough, or have enough time to go back to school and work 80-hour weeks between your other commitments. Maybe you think you just aren't in a position where you can afford to go back to school. Well, what if I told you that these were all totally legitimate justifications?
Right.
The reason that these jobs pay so well is about 20% because you need to be smart to do them, but 80% because you need to be entirely dedicated to them above anything else in your life. That 20% intelligence is probably an overestimate too. If you are willing to do anything for 80 hours a week, you are going to get very good at it. The hardest part is qualifying for limited positions at schools, but the people that make it aren't uniquely remarkable. They just work really hard. Being able to sacrifice the best years of your life is a different story though. Type the phrase, "why I quit big law," or medicine, or investment banking into Google, and you will find countless stories about people losing relationships, gaining an unhealthy amount of weight, and not being able to go to family funerals because big projects were due. Why do you think they pay them this much? You have the opportunity to do this, and if you're willing to work 80 hours a week for a decade to get into these roles, you will be rich. But you won't do it because it's hard and requires a lot of sacrifice. There is nothing wrong with this, and I wouldn't even personally recommend this career to many people. But what makes you think you would have any better luck starting your own business, which requires more sacrifice and a lower chance of financial success? You need money to live, so unless you are independently wealthy, you are going to need to do something to make money.
You listening? It's easier than you think. Every person you're on the phone with, they want to get rich, and they want to get rich quickly.
Starting your own business may sound appealing. Being your own boss, setting your own schedule, being the master of your own destiny, and above all, being able to make more money than you ever could as an employee. But wait, starting a successful business is going to take all the same sacrifices as becoming an employee in one of the most prestigious industries from before. Sources vary widely, but most estimates say that on average, a new business will take 18 to 36 months to achieve profitability, and 5 years to achieve income comparable to an average American salary. That's the same 5 years that you couldn't spend at school because you needed the income. Starting a business will also normally involve a significant investment of money. Some of you will be lucky enough to have this, but most of you would need to borrow it. It seems more difficult to get a business loan than a student loan, and the terms and interest on a student loan are going to be much more forgiving. Then there is the simple fact that most businesses fail. And of those businesses that are successful, most are started by people that have had long careers, developing great skill sets by working a regular job. But maybe you're unfazed by all of this, because at the end of the day, having your own business still has one big advantage over working in any of these other fields, which is that you don't have anybody to answer to. People don't quit jobs, they quit bosses. Working in a high-pressure environment for long hours with a boss that thinks juniors at a firm need to struggle because they had to struggle when they were a junior should be classed as a form of cruel and unusual punishment. That's a problem you won't have if you're running your own show, which is great, but you will be trading that in for something much worse. The author and anthropologist David Graeber has released several books that I highly recommend. The provocatively named Bullshit Jobs was the basis of my most successful video ever, but I don't think it is his best work. I think his best work is actually a book called The Utopia of Rules, on technology, stupidity, and the secret joys of bureaucracy. This book starts with Graeber recounting his experience signing his elderly mother up to stay at a nursing home. He was forced to work through hundreds of pages of paperwork for what would have been a simple transaction. His mother would pay a fee to the home from her savings in exchange for a room, meals, and elderly care. Despite the straightforward nature of the arrangement, Graeber was forced to sift through endless liability waivers that all needed to be signed in triplicate and witnessed by an appointed notary. Despite being a great frustration, some of this paperwork is necessary. It would be important to know, for example, if someone being checked into an elderly care home had a preferred physician or if they were on medication. but most of it wasn't. Most of the paperwork was a construct of an inherently inefficient bureaucracy, designed to keep the businesses functioning and the people in the types of jobs that one might describe as bullshit. You would probably agree that we do not live in an inherently violent society. Most of us will thankfully go our entire lives without being the victim of a violent crime, but we are still beholden to a fundamentally violent system.
See, I'm not the thief. I'm not the one charging 85 cents for a stinking soda! You're the thief!
Stray too far outside the rigid framework of the bureaucracy, and you will face legal consequences. Don't deal with those legal consequences properly, and you will face violence in the form of police enforcement. Graeber makes the case that most businesses exist because of this bureaucracy. Every page of that checklist to get his mother into a nursing home was work that kept an insurance agency, a legal firm, and a medical database manager in work. Within those businesses are bureaucracies that will necessitate employees that exist for no other reason than to tick boxes created by the bureaucracy in the first place. But now that I have said the word bureaucracy so many times that it's doing that thing where it doesn't sound like a real world anymore, why does this matter? Graeber's point is that you can be one of two people. Someone like a business owner would do well from cutting down on needless complexity within their own organization, and they will be endlessly dealing with external rules and regulations about how they can pay their staff, record their transactions, display their marketing, make their product, advertise their services, and deal with customers. Do anything wrong, and they are one step closer to society's thinly veiled threat of violence. Alternatively, you could be someone who feeds off the bureaucracy, someone who is there to tick boxes for compliance reasons and possesses the adequate certifications to make the operation legal. 9-to-5 jobs are a happy compromise for most people. They offer a safe place nestled in the fabric of society's endless rules to let people be present for a set number of hours in exchange for a set amount of money. We like to say that we hate the bureaucracy, but imagine how outraged your place of work would be if they announced that they were changing their compensation plan to a 100% performance-based system. Graeber's book was ahead of its time in how well it described the phenomenon that is being called quiet quitting. Workers who are fed up with their jobs are not quitting to find a new job or to take some time off, but instead are simply showing up to work and doing the bare minimum needed to not get fired, with many taking it a step further and doing nothing at all until they do get fired. On one hand, you go guys, fight the power. But on the other hand, imagine trying to do this as the owner of a new business. The reason that someone can stop working and not immediately be fired is because of bureaucracy. It will, in many cases, take the business a long time to realize the work isn't being done due to internal bureaucracy. And then it will take even longer to go through a termination due to external bureaucracies like labor laws. You may hate your 9-to-5, but it looks after you more than you realize. Instead of letting yourself down by paying attention to all the influencers telling you about how terrible working a job is in order to sell you a way out, go and sign up for Brilliant, who can help you get that nugget of knowledge you need for that next pay bump. Brilliant is a learning platform helping you develop your knowledge in math, science, statistics, and even some fun areas like finance and logic. Brilliant offers an interactive way to learn. It doesn't just give you a lesson and expect you to retain what it told you. It regularly tests your knowledge to help you actually learn the subject. If you don't understand a subject, Brilliant has you covered. Their easy-to-understand explanations helped me to grasp complicated subjects that my high school teachers never explained to me in a way that made sense. They have courses in quantitative finance that I highly recommend to all of my viewers. This teaches you everything from fixed income to derivatives, helping you understand how financial analysis works so that you don't get scammed by a ridiculously expensive day trading course that will just lose you more of your money. From a former financial professional to you, let me say this. Understanding options, Greeks, and futures contracts will put you far ahead of others in understanding finance, and Brilliant helps you do that. No matter if you want to learn from your computer or your phone, Brilliant makes the learning experience fun and easy. To get started for free, go to brilliant.org/howmoneyworks or click the link in the description, and the first 200 of you will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. You will still have to work, potentially until the day you die. But you might just find a little satisfaction in the knowledge that you will be cheating the system the entire time.
One of my life goals was to die right here, in my desk chair.
Now, if you want the best example of people doing a terrible job but still getting paid a lot, look no further than the History Channel. What was once a great network that produced fascinating documentaries is now just a pit of reality TV garbage. To learn why this happened, go and watch my video about the slow downfall of the History Channel right here. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe to keep on learning how money works.
Well, that's tough. Lots of people don't like their jobs, but we do them anyway. You gotta do what you gotta do.